Hello, Bridge Builders! I'm here with some exciting news. The first volume of interviews is now available on Amazon.com. The link can be found at EatLunchandBoardGame.com. I promise that all proceeds from sales of this book will go right back into this podcast and channel. Whether that is new and better audio equipment for the podcast, or video equipment for the YouTube channel, or even more games to review, the money will not be wasted. Click over to Amazon and get your copy of Eat Lunch and Board Game The First Course today. And thank you for supporting the show. All right, welcome back to Eat Lunch and Board Game. I'm your host, Adam Collins, and joining me once again, because he's a glutton for punishment, is Joe Slack, author, game developer, and now publisher of games. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Adam. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, absolutely. When you asked to come back on the show, I thought at first, really? Sure, why not? So as we were talking, I think the only new question that I have since the last time you were on the show that I ask all my guests now is, in a board game with colors as different pawn pieces or whatever for that game, what color do you gravitate towards?
Well, although it's not always an option in all games, I prefer black, actually. That's my favorite color. But quite often, you break open a game and that's not an option. So if I must, I'll go up with backup color of either red or blue.
Those are safe. Those are safe. Those tend to be in most games.
Yes.
Black, yeah, not so much. Not so much. So you've got an expansion pack coming out to your game Relics that I will let you go ahead and say because I'll butcher it.
Yeah, Relics of Rajavahara.
All right. And you've got an expansion pack coming out on Kickstarter September 7th. I missed it, as we talked about the first time, but you've assured me that this time around the base game will be a backer tier where you can back and get the base game and the expansion. So I'm looking forward to getting it this time.
For sure, yeah. So last year, it's just over a year ago, I launched the Kickstarter for Relics of Rajavahara. And since that time, I've been making sure that's getting fulfilled to everybody. And that's just wrapping up right now. So it's time to go ahead with the next version. Everybody's been really positive about it. And I've been working on more levels, more new challenges over the course of the last year since then. So that's come together really well. So I'm going to be launching on September 7th, the Montallo's Revenge, which is when our nemesis returns in some format that you'll have to find out. And you'll have a whole bunch of new challenges. So like you said, there will be tiers for the base game. So if anybody missed out on that, they'll be able to get that, or the expansion, or both.
Well, sign me up for both.
Very cool.
Yeah, I missed the first one, and so I'm excited to get the base game and the expansion this time around. So you said last time that you did play games with your lunchtime group before you went, as they like to say, you went pro and now do this full time, which is awesome, by the way.
Thanks.
And so you had an interesting statistic that every single one of your games that has made it published, you play tested at some point with that group.
Yeah, it's true. We were just talking about this just before the interview, and I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, yeah, I've play tested so many games with them, and every single one that I can think of. So King of Indecision, Kingdom's Candy Monsters, Forward Thinking, Zoo Year's Eve, and Relics of Rajavahara at least once, usually multiple times. I brought it to my gaming group at work. We used to meet every Monday and play games, and usually it's the same crew. Some people would join in some weeks that weren't there, or maybe they had to work through their lunch sometimes. But we had a good core group, anywhere between about 4 and 8 people. And yeah, I brought, after bringing in some published games and getting everybody kind of familiar and comfortable with some of them, I started to ask, oh, would you mind if I brought in a game I'm working on? I design games too, and everybody was super enthusiastic. They're like, oh, cool, you work on games? Or, oh, I heard you had. So sure. So over the course of, multiple years, I brought in some of those prototypes and got some fantastic feedback from, a different group that I wouldn't have played with otherwise. And yeah, it just so happens that every single one that got published, I brought at least once or twice to that group, which is pretty cool.
So kind of like a good luck charm.
It must have been.
So hopefully, moving forward, if you have any new ideas, you can just kind of call them up, head back over there, meet them up for lunch on a Monday, and
Just never know.
hey, it can't go, can't hurt, right?
Exactly. More playtests, the better, right? You know that.
Oh, absolutely. The more play tests, the more different people you can get to play test. Oh, you can never have too many play testing. You can have some not so great feedback at times, but that only helps your game become better.
Absolutely. It's all necessary. It's sometimes hard to hear that when you bring the game and you just made a change. You thought, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then it just completely falls apart or people don't like that part. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, it didn't work. Okay, back to the drawing board. But at least, you need that information in order to make your game better. That's the only way it's going to become better.
Yes, and sometimes you've got to what's the saying? You got to kill your babies to make every now and then something you really like, but just isn't working out in this specific game. It's hard, but you got to cut it loose.
Absolutely. Yeah. Kill your darlings is what they say, which is a
That's
harsh
what it
term,
is.
but it's absolutely necessary.
That's what it is. Kill your baby sounds way worse. We'll forget I said that. Also, since the last time you were on, you released your fourth book.
Yeah, it was the Board Game Designer's Guide to Careers in the Industry. So what I did was, you hear so many people talking about wanting to get into the industry, and the problem is everybody wants to be a game designer, and it's I kind of make the comparison to a band, like let's say a rock band. Everybody can't be the singer, right? You need the bass, you need the guitar, you need the drums, you need somebody on keyboards or whatnot. You need the full complement that makes up the band, and just like you have agents and marketing people and the record label and all these other people, you can't just have all game designers. So some people are filled with all these other great skills that could be really really helpful in the board game industry. Anything from project management to game development to rulebook writing or content writing to marketing to art direction. There's so many other varied roles and careers that you could potentially get into. So what I did was I was really looking at that and thinking, I talked about from my own experience of what I've seen, but I also wanted to talk to a lot of people who work in the industry in some of these roles. So I talked to people in, all those different roles that I mentioned and a whole lot more to talk about how they got into the industry, how they found out, do they work full time? Do they work part time? How do they go about, building up their reputation and that type of thing? So it was a really interesting journey hearing from all these people. And I just wanted to take that information and share it back with people who might be thinking about how can I get into the industry, and to think about some roles that might be great for them. They might have those particular skill sets and not even realize how helpful they could be in the industry and fill some gaps.
No, absolutely. I know we kind of had a joke where you said, find your niche.
Mm-hmm.
Find your niche. And so I loaded up your audiobook immediately and just started like going through it chapter by chapter. I just inhaled the book. It was a really great book. The audiobook on it was fantastic because I could put it on, listen to it while I worked, and I totally did. And I emailed you. We had a couple editing errors, and I said, "See, I found my niche. My niche is to be an audiobook editor."
There you go.
So, no, that was a good one. There's a couple great contacts in there. People that, like you said, not only do game design, people that do rule book editing, people that have websites dedicated to just board game nerd paraphernalia, t-shirts, mugs, stickers, the whole nine. There's a lot to this industry more than just board game design. I've interviewed artists, board game designers, developers, even a lady who did cross stitches. Like, she was a big board game Dungeons and Dragons nerd, and she created board game Dungeons and Dragons themed cross stitch patterns that she was selling on Etsy. And I'm like, I do cross stitch and this looks great. I'm going to do it. So there's all kinds of fun things you can do. Or you could be a podcaster about board games.
Yeah, well, there's tons of content creators, right? There's everything from, the people who do reviews, previews, rule overviews, podcasts, blogs, and all these other adjacent industries, like you're saying, people who make, merchandise, because, us geeks, we want to show off our love for games, right? So with mugs and t-shirts and posters and that kind of thing. Katja Howitson who's part of some groups online. She does a board game calendar. She does these amazing pieces of art that are just all components. She gets all these components from all different games and will make up something that looks like, one of the birds from Wingspan or something like that, and then photograph it. Oh, it looks fantastic.
Yep, but it's just all game tidbits.
Oh yeah, totally. So I mean, there's all sorts of different things you can get into. You just got to figure out what people need, what the needs are out there, and maybe you have that talent to do something that people are going to love.
Yeah, I mean, there's like you said, content is crazy. I watch a lot of how tos, a lot of rule overviews. There's one of the crazier things I see a lot of is the unboxing videos, and I always think that's just kind of weird. But man, that is a huge industry of not just board games, but I bought this new blah blah blah, and I'm going to open it up on camera and tell you what it is, and I'm going to make millions of dollars. I'm like,
Yeah, it's amazing that those have become so popular. Unboxings and people watching other people play video games, and now people watching other people play board games. And I mean, I guess in some ways, like how I got started was a little bit through Will Wheaton
yep,
and tabletop, and my wife discovering that through a friend, and then saying, "Oh, we got to go out and buy these 5 games right now." Okay, well, let's go do it.
I'm
And
pretty sure. Yeah, that's really what got me fully into this in this great hobby is Will Wheaton's tabletop. I mean, I did the same thing as your wife. I'm watching it, writing down the names of the games, and like, see if I can go find this one. So, oh, this one looks good. And then the next thing you know, you've bought half the episodes worth of games.
yeah, and then you go play some other games and go to some cafes and some events, and every game you play, this game is awesome, and you need to own it for yourself. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I guess he kind of started off that was one of the earlier ones that you're watching people play games. But I mean, it was very engaging the way that they recorded it and had the discussions, and you'd have them kind of off camera, kind of talking. It was almost like kind of like documentary style and game at the same time, and just having fun with it. So, I mean,
Yeah.
they really hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah, that show is deeply missed by the community, I know,
Oh
because
yeah, I wish that was coming back.
that had some great. Oh man, so many episodes. My son has watched the Formula D episode so many times because one, he loves the game, but two, he just loves the episode, and he just sits there and watches it all the time. It's kind of weird, but hey. So the expansions. One thing I want to talk to you about was how we had a successful Kickstarter campaign with Fences, and then we tried to launch an expansion pack for it called The Ranch, and it's a whole different animal launching an expansion versus launching a base game. And we kind of we put all into practice everything we learned from the first go around, but it almost is a completely different animal to do an expansion than it is to do a base game. What kind of differences have you found, and what kind of things have you put in place to help negate that difference?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. An expansion versus kind of a base game, they are totally different animals. I mean, when you're looking at expansion, a big portion of that is going back to the well, as you might say, going back to the people who already purchased your original base game, and then asking them if they, do you want more content? Do you want something else to add to the game, to add to the experience, to add more content, whatever the case may be. So it's absolutely a different approach. I think one of the ways that you can mitigate that as well is to include your base game as well as part of the campaign, whether it's a reprint or just as an option as part of those tiers. And I'm definitely including that myself, because there's always going to be those people who missed your first campaign and have heard about it since and are really interested. Like for Relics, for example, there's a lot of people who've been posting about the game, and other people are jumping on and saying, "Oh, I missed this one," or "Where can I get it?" And one person even today was like, "Can I just want to give you my money. Where can I give you my money?" kind of thing, which is always nice to hear. But including the base game in that, so that people who missed your campaign the first time, or came or saw it late and contacted you and said, "Oh, I really want this. Let me know where I can get it," and then you can get them to sign up for email list and that type of thing. So having that option so people can buy the base game, they can buy the expansion. If they are new to your game, they can buy both, especially if you have, a good deal, couple dollars off or something like that, or, you save on shipping because you're getting two things at once. Um, those are a couple opportunities to bring people in. So it's partially about getting your current backers and customers to come back, but also bringing new people in. And I think part of it too, I learned this, I believe it was from Everdell. I believe that they launched their expansion fairly shortly after the original game was delivered, within a couple months, anyways. It's a good time to be going back to your audience because they're still excited about your game. They've just received it, they've just started to play it, they're talking about it, they're telling their friends about it, they're posting about it because it's new. Everybody loves the nice new thing. So if people are still excited about that, and then you say, "Hey, I've got some more stuff," and they're already enjoying the game, it's much more likely that they're going to say, "Oh, cool! I'd love more content because by the time I've played this a lot or I've gone through the campaign or whatnot, I'm going to be looking for more stuff." So I know it's going to be a while. Kickstarter games, you can expect it to take a while, 6 months, a year, sometimes more, for a game to be delivered. So you want them excited about it then, as opposed to coming to them later when they've already moved on to the next new game, that kind of thing, and they're not as excited about it. So approaching them while they're still excited about the game, giving them the option to get the base or the expansion, that type of thing. And my campaign's still over a month away as we speak right now, so I've got to kind of figure out the marketing for that as well. But I think for the most part, my marketing's going to be based around trying to get people interested in the base game because it's going for the new people, and then for those who are already backers, just letting them know, here's the notification, here's some things that are coming out, maybe give a couple little spoilers, couple little teasers about, oh, here's what you can expect with the expansion, that kind of thing, and just give them incentives to come back and try the new content.
Yeah, absolutely. It's because you are trying to mobilize two different people, right? You're trying to mobilize, like you said, the existing backers, your existing people, and you're trying to mobilize a new group. And I think where we really struggled was catering more to the new group, the people that didn't have our game already. And Kickstarter, you really got about 3 days, 4 days at the beginning to make your presence known, and after that, you start falling down that logarithm, and the organic finding is slow. So we didn't make a lot of changes until about a weekend, and it was just it was too little too late, or too much too late, or too something too late for sure. And that kind of hurt us. So we pulled it. We moved on for right now. Got other stuff in the queue, and we're excited for what we've got coming. And we're like, we've always, when we get everything rolling, we've got the expansions already, which the expansions for our game came from ideas that we didn't put into the base game. We wanted the base game to be kind of straightforward. This is how the game works. And then all the expansions are, well, now this can happen, or now this can happen. And now instead of doing this, you can do this. And there's, oh man, now I'm blanking. I think there's like 9 different ways to play to augment the game, to change a little bit of the rules to the game. And so we had to, with 9 different ones, we had to play test every one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we had, luckily we had our coworkers, and I just remember playing one of them was the tractor expansion. We were playing it at work, and we're like, whoa, this is not working out. And so we stopped midway through, and one of the guys that was like, just running with the game was like, oh, I think it's working out fine. Well,
well, for the one that's winning, sure.
right, but there's no way to get it. The whole thing was he would never lose control of the tractor, and we're like, you have to lose control of the tractor. Well, why? Because you're running away with the game because you're the one that has the tractor. And so being able to go back, and they already knew our game well because, again, we play tested fences with our coworkers a lot. So they were familiar with the base game. So bringing in all the expansions, like 1 or 2 at a time, I remember at the end, we were trying to finish up at the beginning of COVID. and I would hang my cell phone from the kit or the dining room light fixture to shine down on the table and invite my phone to the meeting so we could play the game. And we had the game on the table. My son's on one side, I'm on the other, and then we've got two of my coworkers are on the call, and we're trying to play this game with, with this phone suspended from the light fixture so everybody could see. We had to put a note that was north, so we knew which way. So you could say, no, go north with that piece. No, go east. And so we knew which way that was just based on where the inn was that day, because the phone would always orient some way weird. So yeah, we were playtesting into COVID, the last few of the expansions for Fences. So it was definitely a fun experience. But yeah, using your coworkers. Anybody listening, use your coworkers. They are a wealth of free playtesters.
Yeah, and most likely will be very interested. They're like, "Oh, cool! You do this on the side too? That's so cool." But you
Yeah.
brought up another great point there too. The different types of expansions too. So with Fences, it sounds like yours is more adding more strategy, more depth. Changing the game, how you play it in some way, in some manner. For Relics of Rajvahara, I'm taking a different approach because it's very much campaign driven, level driven. I'm adding more content. So there's a little bit of difference there. You're going to change the way that the game plays. I'm going to be adding more to what they already know and just kind of building on that. So there might be something to be said about that too. I don't know which one in general is a more successful approach. Obviously, it's got to be based on the game which approach you're going to take. It just wouldn't make sense in some cases to go in one direction or the other. But I'd be really interested to hear which types of expansions generally do better, because I think there's quite a broad range that you can actually apply in terms of expansions.
No, absolutely. We were just playing Downforce, the car racing game, and they just put out new tracks. You know, you change you bend the new track all up, and that changes how you play your cards. And now they've got this last one they put out again right at the beginning of COVID, added ramps. So I'm like, okay, you're a bit off theme here because you don't see a lot of Indy cars ramping, but hey, I'll take it. But that was a whole different kind of expansion versus even like you're adding new levels. They added new tracks, which same gameplay, just different track. And then like you said, with ours is augmenting gameplay. So then you got the expansions to Wingspan, which just add more birds.
Yeah, and specific to regions, so people living in that region or interested in that region may be interested in seeing that. Yeah, and I think I've heard a figure of roughly about 30%, and it's very give or take, but that's about the percentage of people that I've heard will go and back an expansion after they've bought the base game, and of course that can vary a lot, and that's just what I recall, so I may be a little bit off there too. So you can't necessarily expect as many people are going to buy. So let's say you have a Kickstarter and you sell 1,000 copies of your game, and then you go and release your expansion. You're probably looking at somewhere in the ballpark of about 300 games or somewhere around there, give or take. Plus, you might have some new people who buy the base game if you're offering that and the expansion at the same time. But you're likely going to be doing a smaller print run if you're doing this on your own through a Kickstarter or other crowdfunding campaign, as opposed to just going direct to retail if you have the distribution network and that type of thing. But the good thing with an expansion is there's some familiarity with the game already, and there are going to be some people who are going to jump on it right away because they love the base game and they will buy anything new that's going to come out for it, as opposed to some publishers might take that approach as opposed to putting out a brand new game, because the brand new game, there's a lot of question marks. Is it going to do as well as this other one? Like look at Pandemic, for example. They have many different versions and expansions for that. They know that works, so they can come out with a Cthulhu version, and they can come up with different regions of the world and a dice version and all sorts of different things. And they know, this isn't going to sell as many copies as the original Pandemic, but we're okay with that because it's already sold millions. 30% or whatever percent of that many million is still a lot of copies and probably more sure bet than putting out, game X, whatever the next one is that's pitched to them.
Sure, 30% of a million is still a significant number of.
Yeah, I'd take that many sales games. I'd take that any day.
Yeah, would that be like the best problem to have? Man, what am I going to do with all these hundreds of thousands of sales? Oh no.
First world problems.
Yeah, man, I hope you have that problem with your expansion pack here. Remember Joe? He pulled all of his hair out because he sold too many games. But no, I'm excited for your new one. Like I said, your fourth book. I think I devoured it in 2 days. Do you have another book lined up? Another book idea?
Oh, I always have lots of ideas, but no, since I've been fairly busy with preparing for this expansion and for the Kickstarter and just finishing the fulfillment of the previous campaign, that's kept me fairly busy. So the ideas are there, but on the back burner at the moment.
So did you do your own fulfillment, or did you have a third party help you out?
Both, multiple third parties. Yeah, it would have been quite an undertaking to be shipping that many games all over the world, and the filling up my garage for so long and whatnot. I used multiple partners. I used actually 4 different partners in different regions.
Wow.
It felt that was the best approach because they know their regions very well, and I was also able to give my backers the best price that way. It did mean splitting up shipments, going to different areas, but it all worked out pretty well.
That's impressive. That's awesome. No, we did it all ourselves, and I do not recommend that.
Yes.
That was a lot of work. I can tell you that right now. We did it all ourselves, and whoo, we did have the advantage of not filling up our garages, but we work on our place of employment. We have a warehouse, and so we just let the warehouse guy know, hey, there's a skid coming with a bunch of board games on it. And he's like, okay. And it showed up. They put it over in the corner, and it as we were just grabbing cases and shipping them out case by case. And we eventually got all the way down, and the leftover stock we threw in his car and my car, and so they're in my basement, his attic. But yeah, I don't think either one of our wives would have been happy if 2 skids of board games just showed up at one of our houses.
Yeah, for sure. And you got no pump cart or forklift or anything to move things around. So yeah, you're just kind of stuck with where they put them.
Yeah, hey, we're just gonna leave these in the middle of the street, okay?
Yeah, they won't get wet, no damage or anything there.
Yeah, no, yeah. Oh man, but yeah, good for you. That's awesome to have broke it out to 4 different ones like that. That's
Yeah. Well, Adam, you actually mentioned overstock as well, which is something I was going to mention too, which is a handy thing too when you're running an expansion campaign, especially when you're including the base, because let's say you sell 1,000 games on your first Kickstarter. Generally, publishers will get more copies than that made. Because the occasional game will get damaged, lost in transit, and that kind of thing. So you always want to have some extra copies. But you also have to think about what you want to do with your game beyond Kickstarter. Are you going to get your game into retail? Are you going to sell it on Amazon? Are you going to sell it from your own site? Go to conventions, or run further Kickstarters. So it's always good to have some extra copies. The big question is how many extra copies you want, because some publishers will get stuck with, like I said, a garage fulls of games they can't sell. So you don't want to overdo it. But if you do have some leftover copies, that can also be helpful too, because generally an expansion is going to be less expensive to produce, and you'll be selling it for less than the base game. So you can have a lower funding goal for that Kickstarter for the expansion. And also, if you include the base game in there, those base game sales, they're going to contribute to your funding goal as well. So it'll be easier to hit that funding goal. And if you have some of that overstock, you don't even necessarily have to worry about getting another print run done. If you have, say, 400 or 500 extra copies, and you get a few hundred extra orders, you've already got them there. They're already paid for. They're already being stored. They're ready to go. So that can contribute to your funding goal, and you can have them ready to go. And if it's really successful and you get a lot of new backers, it'll be enough to generate another print run, which is always good too, because you can keep that game in circulation. So overstock is not necessarily a bad thing as long as you have some way to move that inventory.
Yeah, that's the key, right? Otherwise, your significant other starts going, are these boxes going to be here forever? And you have to kind of be like, maybe.
And then they're asking, and you want to run another Kickstarter? How many projects do you need for these games? Oh my goodness.
You can't run another one until all these boxes are gone.
Sell every single one of these copies before you can run another one.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that might be harder to do. Oh man, yeah.
That's finding them like, under the bed and in the closet and stuff. I thought you got rid of all these.
It's hiding behind the coffee. I can just see that. Like, it's like my kids putting their toys away, right? Like, they're not put away; they're just hidden from view.
Like golf on the shelf all year round here. What's going on?
Exactly. Like, man, I thought you put all these cars up. No, you just told me to get them out of that room. Yeah, you push them to the edge of the room, buddy.
You gotta be more specific about this. Come on.
Yeah, the precision of speech. That's from The Giver. That's what my wife and I always say is it's precision of speech. So, Joe, I'd like to thank you for being on today. I wish you luck, man, and I can't wait. September 7th, I will make sure to blast that out on my Facebook page as well when it launches. I may not be your first backer, but I'll try to be within the first dozen.
Oh, that's awesome.
As long as I can. I try to hit those early numbers when I can, but I'm excited for it. Like I said, I look forward to it. I look forward to any other books that you want to write, because I love to read them. I keep reading more and more.
And I know you're great listening through the podcast, so we've already talked about this. You can do the last run through before it goes out.
That's right. Find your niche. My niche is listening to podcasts and recordings. So thanks again for coming on. And anytime you want to come on, if you want to be the first person to come on for a third time, by all means, let me know.
Wow. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Adam. It was a lot of fun chatting with you. Had lots of laughs and great conversation. Thanks again.
Yep. And for those of you who want to reach out to me, it is facebook.com/eatlunchandboardgame, or email me at eatlunchandboardgame@gmail.com. And remember, board games build bridges.
Stay in tune with all things sports around Indiana and the nation with the Crash Course Podcast. Each week, we tackle the big storylines from the world of the Colts, Pacers, and the Indiana college scene, while also keeping a pulse on the nation. We record live weekly at twitch.tv/3C Media and can be found on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can catch the Crash Course Podcast.
When you're gaming, why not be comfy? Go over to supportplayer.org. Click on the cards, pieces, and dice to get some merch. These t-shirts are some of the most comfortable I have ever worn. That's supportplayer.org, and there's a link on eatlunchandboardgame.com.